Number 3, which is in this discussion, discuss action to adopt resolution 1605, a resolution requesting Paulding County delegation to the Georgia General Assembly to introduce a bill to amend the Paulding County Airport Authority Act. Ms. Skipper, I believe this was a request. I've had people ask me, can I just make this kind of request? There's a majority of the board that can vote and make that decision, so that's what they've chosen to do. So you want to talk about it?
As you had indicated, Commissioner Powell had asked that I draft something up to request that the local delegation to the General Assembly restructure how the Paulding County Airport Authority is made up, how the members are made. He had made a similar request about the Industrial Building Authority, but I looked into that, and the IBA is a constitutional amendment authority, so it would take a constitutional amendment to change it as well. The Airport Authority was created by an act of the General Assembly, so it's a little bit different. That's why this resolution only deals with the Airport Authority. What it would indicate in it is that it would change how the makeup of the board is done, so that there are no elected officials on the board any longer, but that the members are made up as a representative from Dallas, a representative from Hiram, 2 members selected by the local delegation to the Georgia General Assembly, and 1 member for each of the Board of Commissioners and the chairman. So there would be 9 members in total. And none of them would overlap with the existing members of another board, such as the IDA, or even something as like the Planning Commission. You wouldn't have any members that overlap with this board that are on any other board or authority in the county. The terms of the members would go with the terms of the appointing party. So for the Georgia General Assembly, those members would only have a 2-year term, and the members that each of you would nominate respectively or recommend for nomination would go with what your term is. So they would be staggered 4-year terms, and then the mayor of Dallas and Hiram's, those city councils, they would go with the mayor's term, which is also a staggered.
Just like to make note on that the in fact, we've got several people in the audience today that were on the Citizen Steering Committee, and back in 2014, we, the Board of Commissioners, basically we appointed a Citizen Steering Committee, and we had one for the IBA, we had one for the Airport Authority. The IBA had 2 post-commissioners sit on that committee. The Airport Authority had 2 post-commissioners sit on that steering committee. These recommendations that they gave us toward the end of 2014, the proposal that Ms. Skipper has drawn up that we've worked on actually is probably 90% the steering committee that was appointed to do that. 90% of it is exactly what they requested, the steering committee requested. We did add another member. The steering committee had 5 members, 1 for each board of commissioner. They had 1 for each mayor, and they had 1 for the local delegation. We decided to make 2 and make it a 9-member board. And so that both of those committees worked very hard and diligently throughout the year. Had quite a few meetings, gave some great reports at the end, and you know, the hot topic issues, the airport, and those committees were. We had people on those committees that the commissioners and the mayors picked, and we had people that supported commercialization on the committee, and we had people that didn't support commercialization on the committee. I don't know exactly what it would be. I think it may have been a little bit leaning towards you had more on the committee that supported commercialization. But at the end of the day, what was interesting is both the IBA steering committee and the Airport Authority steering committee both came up with recommendations of saying, hey, we need to separate those boards. And they did that individually on their own and through their process. So that's basically what this does here. The members that would be chosen would not be allowed to serve on any other board, so you would not have them on the IBA board or any other board. And I think the steering committee worked hard on that. I think they came up with some great things that they could pass on to us. I wish at that time we could have waited just a little bit longer for them to finish, because they were right at finishing. And wish they could have done that and the board could have taken action then. It's been something that's been talked about all year, and I think it's a step in the right direction to help take care of some situations we have going on those two boards. And Chairman Austin was a part of the steering committee as far as picking somebody, and it was also part of his plan, and I think it's something that we can all agree on.
I'm in agreement with you. But a month ago, what we said we would do is make sure that all posts would be represented when we voted on something like this. So right now, there's not a representative in post one, and I think we'd be doing it prematurely if we adopted a month ago to say, well, you shouldn't take board members and you shouldn't make appointments for, at that time, a commissioner that was resigning to save the county money and also qualify for office. So now, a month later, I don't think we ought to adopt this until we certainly feel like it should be, but I don't think we ought to do that when we don't have post one filled at this time.
But you make a good point, but at the same time, this would be, if this was to pass this afternoon, we would send it on to.
Right, and I meant to clarify that.
Okay.
If you all pass this afternoon, then the next step is that I would forward a copy to the local delegation, and then it would be up to the local delegation to decide whether or not they wanted to present a bill to the General Assembly. So by passing this, you're not guaranteeing that the local delegation is going to do that.
Well, we're not guaranteeing that the local delegation is going to do it, number one, and until they do that, we would not be in a position to be making appointments at that time. The last thing that came up was we were approving appointments for a post commissioner that was not here, and so that came up that needed to be held off. We're not doing that at this time. I think if with all the information that's out there that these steering committees did, I would think whatever post commissioner got in that spot, can't tell what that person would do, but again, I think they would support it. Just like you said you do, and if there's 4 of us today that support it, then I think there would be 4 of us that would support it in a month. That's going to come to us a little bit on down the road if they take it up and do what they're supposed to do, and at that time we would make appointments and somebody will be sitting here. So I think we're good with that, because I think that's kind of a different scenario of what we were
We're just
before.
guessing, and again, if we set stuff up and we say that this is how we'll do it because there's nobody in that post, so we'll hold off on that, and then we say, well, we think we know how they're going to vote, so we'll do it anyway. Does it make great parliamentary procedure to me? So I think all the posts should be here and be represented when we vote.
There's a lot of what you said that I could maybe agree with, and when you make a decision to step out of a post at whatever time you make, and you're not represented, the post is not being represented, and that's what it is. My point is that if there's 3 of us, 4 of us, it sounds like today, that agree with this and agree with the steering committee's recommendations, then if we wait, then we would be looking at a 4-1 vote, or we would be looking at a 5-0 vote. But the reason that we waited on the other things was because there's not a post one commissioner to appoint somebody, and that's not what we're doing today. We're doing this so that we can get it to the delegation so they can have it in a timely manner in order to do what they need to do. And at that point, it'll be their decision to do what they need to do. It won't be my decision, it won't be this board's. And when that comes back, if they run it through and they approve it, when it comes back at that time, then we would appoint those people. If for some reason there's nobody sitting here at that time, which I think there will be, then we would hold off on that appointment until that person gets here and that person would make the appointment. So I don't think it interferes with what we're doing today. You know, we've talked a lot over the last couple of months about somebody resigning in order to run, and when's the day, when's the drop dead day, when should you do it by February 10th, and do this and do that. It's going to cost the county money. I'd like to see some things change. We talk about the cost the county almost $600,000 if somebody doesn't resign and put their name in the hat at a certain time. These two boards have just cost us $763,000. And this is something that I think we all agree on, and this is something that the steering committees agree on. And if anything didn't come out, they both came out at the end of the day and said, you know what? People on both sides said these two boards need to be separate. And I think if we can do that, we'll start heading down the right path.
Again,
Thank you.
Again, you know, it's every 2 weeks we change the rules as how it might fit us for every month. So, you know, if we're not going to vote on something because that post doesn't fill, then we shouldn't vote on something that affects the whole county, and saying we know how that post is going to vote, or well, it'll be on the floor one. Who cares? Well, I tell you, the legislature cares. Bill Heath has told me many times that he wants a 5-0 vote, or he will not put something on the floor of the House to be voted on. So I don't go to them and say, yeah, but here's a new situation, and so you know. Again,
Well,
procedurally, that's my problem.
go ahead.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if we carry what you just said out to its logical conclusion, then today's the last meeting until we get another post commissioner in here, because we can't do anything until we get a commissioner. Business still goes on. Things have to be done. This is something that does affect post one, but this is something that's good for the county, and I think we put the county first in this. I think we'll go ahead and vote today.
And I think I've talked to Mr. Heath several times too, and I think they like to see a 5-0 vote. Of course, it's impossible to see that today, but a 4-0 vote is a 5-0 vote today, because that's all we've got. And if we all agree, then there shouldn't be a problem with it. The other thing, you know, people talk about somebody resigning and somebody else resigning, whatever. You put yourself in a pickle up here where you get 3 people sitting up here, you still got to have a majority vote, which is 3. So if you only have 3 people here, and you have 10 things that you're voting on, they have to be 3-0 votes in order to pass. They can't be a 2-1 vote. And I've had that question come up several times. So that's definitely a position that you don't want to put your board in, is you got somebody that's not here. Now you've got 4. If you had somebody else leave, you're down to 3, and you could really put yourself in a position where you're not getting things done for the county. So again, going back to that, post one's not picking anybody. We're just sending this on to the delegation, and they've been aware of it. They've known. It's been talked about for probably a year and a half, and I think we need to do this. I'm excited that all of us agree that we're good with it.
Well, that's the conclusion of a regular business session. There's no executive session.